Okay, so let's talk a little bit about Freud. So one of the important things when you're thinking about psychoanalytic or psychodynamic thought is this idea of the unconscious. This is one of the things that Freud's given to us. So we're going to draw, there's an analogy. This is some water, if you can just imagine that that's water. And we're going to call this consciousness. If I can spell that. Right? And we're going to imagine that in our consciousness there's like this iceberg that's floating there, right? And the iceberg, part of it is above the water, which is what we're conscious of, and some of it is below the water. Like this part, we aren't really aware of those thoughts. They're there, but we can't really perceive them. So in Freud's view, you divide your mind into sort of these three categories, right? So we've got id here first, which is totally unconscious. It's totally under the water. You won't notice. And what the id is these like unconscious drives, right? The survival things, like your sexual urges, right? Your need to eat and drink, so like hunger and thirst, right? That sort of thing, tiredness, just the basic drives, that are in someone that drive your behavior. You aren't really maybe like super conscious always of them, but they do influence your behavior, right? And then over here, we've got superego. Superego. You can write it as one word or two words. I've usually seen it as one word. You probably can't read that, but it says superego. And that's sort of like the internalized rules. And the superego sort of, it's mostly unconscious, but you notice some of it. You're aware of some of it. And this is sort of like your sense of morality, what it's right and wrong. And then here we have the ego, which is you. Another way to represent this that might make it a little bit more easy to understand or sort of supplement this is this idea of a balance, right, between, we're going to put a little demon over here. We'll give him some frowny eyes, a little tail maybe. Yeah. And these are sort of, and this is the id. Well, and we can also call it the beast, right, or the id, right, the pleasure principle. So food, sex, etc., right? Hopefully that makes sense what that is. And on the other side, we'll put a little angel, a little stick figure. We'll give it a halo, some wings. Oh, those look like bat wings. Or make them feathers. Yeah, feather wings, not evil wings. Okay, that's supposed to be an angel, not a police officer, but same difference. And then in the middle, and so this is going to be this little angel, right? And that is your superego. Right, and then in the middle is you. And that is your ego. Right? You. Things you, and it's sort of, and you can balance which one of these is coming out on top, right? The superego, the laws, right, and the morality, the internalized beliefs that you have about what is acceptable and what's not acceptable, sort of balance out, because it's not there's some rules about when you can and can't, like eat things, like you have to pay for them, right, or when you can and can't engage in sexual behaviors. There's some societal conventions about that, etc., right? And so these things sort of keep each other in check. You need the id to keep you alive, but you also need the superego to keep you out of jail, and to preserve your sense of being a good person, right? So the ego is your sort of consciousness, right? And so this idea, this was, I mean, of course, nowadays this is sort of, we sort of just believe this. You're like, yeah, some thoughts are, you just don't realize you have them. They're sort of subconscious. But this was really revolutionary back in the day. And yeah, so hopefully that little diagram is somewhat helpful. The main thing about Freud is, well, there's a lot of things to his theory. This is sort of an oversimplified version. But you will hear people talk about, oh, my subconscious, right? Or my id does something, or my ego. Like we use that word. Well, that person has a really big ego, right? And that sort of is a legacy of Freud's impact on the world and psychology in general, and how we view human thought and human experience. So, yeah, that's that little summary, and hopefully that made sense.